Going back to what we heard from President Trump in that wide-ranging interview with NBC over the weekend on the issue as it pertains to immigration, he not only defended it and boasted about the record low immigrants who are migrants crossing over the border illegally right now, he also, when asked, suggested that his campaign promise and pledge to end illegal border crossings takes precedence, perhaps, even over the Constitution. Again, he always sort of walks a thin line between then deferring to his attorneys and ultimately says, no, we will uphold what the Supreme Court says. But just the fact that that can't be a definitive yes or no response from the President of the United States when asked if he will obey the Constitution, what is your reaction to that?
Yeah, thank you for the invitation, Bianna. Listen, I'll start by just saying that as someone who came to this country from Colombia when I was a child and have spent almost the last 3 decades defending the Constitution, I can tell you that this moment is unlike anything that we've seen, an all-out assault on the very principles that define who we are as a nation, right? Fairness, justice, and due process. Trump's comments are just the latest example to me that show how ill-equipped he is to be president of the United States and that he is also dangerous. He took an oath as the president to uphold the Constitution, but instead we see time and time again how he is attacking the Constitution. This isn't about targeting immigrants. What he's actually doing is attacking the legal framework of American democracy as a whole. He wants unchecked power to remove people without a hearing or without a lawyer. That's not justice. That is authoritarianism, and that is the deep concern that everyone in this country should be fearful of.
What do you think his end goal here is in offering these types of justifications and answers to the news media for the American public to hear? Because obviously we're not privy to a lot of what happens inside a courtroom. But the fact that he is using this type of language to the American public tells you what?
So one, I think he's into theatrics, right? This is political theater. As someone who loved the reality TV shows, he is using the media to send a message to his base, who he believes elected him specifically around addressing the issues around immigration. But I think that the majority of voters, including people who voted for Trump, that want a safe and orderly legal immigration system, not that we are violating our due process rights for everyone, including U.S. citizens, like people being disappeared from their communities, their families, snatched off the streets. That is not what American voters want.
What are the long-term implications and consequences of families being separated like that one that we just heard from Patrick in his reporting, the mother separated from her 17-month-old child who's a U.S. citizen? We hear Tom Homan and other officials who are supporting and defending these types of policies by saying, listen, it's the parent's choice to come here undocumented illegally and have children here. If they want to go back with their children, they can. It obviously is much more complicated than that. We've now seen several public cases, similar to what Patrick just reported there. What are the longer-term implications for these types of families?
Yeah, it's heartbreaking to hear that story, and we hear it every single day, multiple times a day. This isn't abstract, right? This isn't about immigration policy. It's personal. These families are being torn apart, and children are living in fear. So I think the long-term consequences particularly are about the psychological trauma on U.S. citizen children whose parents are being detained and who they're being separated from. I think secondly, there's also the impact on our legal system, right? Again, the United States was founded on a system of checks and balances with the power to be shared between the executive, legislative, and judicial systems. And while the legislative branch seems to be reneging on its constitutional authority, the courts are doing their job in checking on that executive overreach. And so the impact is human, right, in terms of the impact on families. But at the end of the day, we also need to be thinking about the impact on our democracy and the long-term health of our nation.